Venables is doing an awful job coaching this team, and I already know what people are going to say. Well, Matt, we're missing our 4 best wide receivers. I don't care. I did not expect Oklahoma to make the playoff this year, but I did expect them to compete in the SEC, and they haven't. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have an extremely hard time believing there's a better job on this planet than being a winning and successful college football coach. You're doing what you love, you're getting paid millions, and I mean millions of dollars, and you're part of a winning culture. I forgot to throw this in there as well. If you're winning a lot of games, you're either going to A, get offers and contracts from other teams, or B, the current school you're at, they're going to give you a bigger contract. It's hard to imagine someone has a better life than a successful college football coach. But, and I have a big but, with that being said, things aren't as sweet when you're a head coach at a team that's losing or you're not living up to the expectations. Yeah, sure, you're still getting a paycheck, and that may be enough for some people, but remember, these coaches are highly competitive and they want to win. It's not a good feeling waking up every single day knowing that not only you, but your football team is underperforming. You hate it, the players hate it, the coaching staff hates it, the fan hates it, everybody hates it. Nobody wants to be around that program. Eventually it gets to the point where your job, it's on the line. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's video. The college football head coaches who are on the hot seat. It's a relatively simple process, shouldn't be too complicated, so I say without further ado, let's just get straight into it. By the way, this is in no specific order or anything like that. Starting out with this one, not too much to be said about this because it's relatively simple. Dave Aranda, head coach of Baylor. Many people thought he was going to turn Baylor around, but he just hasn't, and they've been a crap show. And the bad part about his situation is it doesn't seem like there's any hope for the future, and when you get to that point, yeah, it's time to go. I could sit up here and talk about him for a couple minutes, but I think that one's a relatively simple one. I meant to say this earlier, but for every single head coach, I'm going to tell you how hot their seat is on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being lukewarm, 10 being the hottest it could be. For Mr. Dave Aranda, I'd say it's right around an 8. Moving along, and this is one where I feel like he's been on the hot seat the past year or so, Ryan Day. Let me say this before we go any farther, because I know somebody, I can already see them, they are flying to the comment section. I mean, absolutely flying, saying, Matt, how's a guy who wins 10 or 11 games per season on the hot seat? Just hear me out. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say Ryan Day's not at a 5, which is, about halfway. He's at a 4. Yeah, sure, he wins a lot of games and has a great overall record, but so would anybody when you're playing Northwestern and Rutgers and Iowa and Michigan State and so on and so on. The Big Ten sucks outside of a few teams. The problem with Ryan Day is he wins all the games he's supposed to, but he can't win a big one. And last time I checked, going 10-2 every single year and losing to your rival Michigan 3 straight years ain't good enough, and that ain't going to get the job done. I really don't even know what would happen if he lost to Michigan this year, because I thought they should have fired him for sure after the second straight loss. But hey, Ohio State's decided to keep him, and I don't mind it, but he's definitely somewhere on the hot seat. Ryan Day is nothing more, nothing less than the Mark Richt of Ohio State. Remember Mark Richt at Georgia, won 10 games every single year, but he couldn't win a championship. More importantly, he couldn't beat Alabama. That's who Ryan Day is at this moment in time, and let me know in the comment section, how hot do you think his seat is? Let's talk about the SEC a little bit. I know the one everybody's already thinking of. I'll get to him in just a second. But what about old Hugh Freeze at Auburn? He is in year 2, and I think Auburn's a decent football team that's a couple players away, but at the end of the day, they're 2-5 and 0-4 in conference play. I believe Hugh Freeze could lose every single game from here on out, and they're still not going to fire him. Auburn's in a unique situation. Yes, they're 2-5. It looks ugly on paper. But when you watch the games, they're competing. They're in all these games. It's not like Auburn's extremely far away and getting blown out. Like I said, they're right there. They just got to make better plays, and it comes down to execution in the fourth quarter. Auburn also has a really good recruiting class coming in, so I think that's another reason why people are giving Hugh Freeze a pass on this season as well. Auburn didn't have heavy expectations heading into the season. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, Hugh Freeze, he's at about a 2 or 3. Here's where things start to get interesting and, I guess you could say, ironically, heat up. Oh, Billy Napier at Florida. When you hear the phrase hot seat, I think everybody's immediate reaction and immediate thought is, oh yeah, Billy Napier in Florida. He's on the hot seat. How hot is it? I don't think too many people actually know. A few weeks ago, I'd say it was at a 9 out of 10. Since then, Florida's been playing some good ball. It has simmered down a little bit. If they would beat Tennessee, I'd only have Billy Napier at like a 2 or 3. That Tennessee game was so pivotal, and they should have won the game, but really different conversation for a different day. I don't know how they blew that. If Florida would have beat Tennessee, they'd have been sitting at a very pretty 5-2, but as it stands right now, they're 4-3. I know that some of you may be sitting here saying, well, Matt, 4-3, it ain't too bad for Florida considering starting quarterback went down, and I was told they was only going to win 5 or 6 games this year. And you're right, my friend. You are 100% right. 4-3 doesn't sound too bad, but when you look at the later half of their schedule, it'll make more sense. You want to know who Florida plays in their next 4 games? Georgia, Texas, that's back-to-back, by the way. LSU, so right there, that's 3 teams in the top 8, and then they play Ole Miss. They are not going to be favored in any of those games, and to end off the year, they got the Seminoles. They should beat the Seminoles, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Point is, they are looking down the barrel of 4 straight losses. Honestly, if Billy Napier, and I firmly believe this, can sneak out one of these next 4 games, he's going to keep his job, and it's not even going to be hot, not to the slide. It's not going to be close. But if he loses these next 4 games, although not expected to win, he's going to go up on that meter just a tad. But here's the real pivotal one. The last game of the year I'll show it to you right here, the Seminoles. You can't lose this one. Just can't happen. Inexcusable. I don't care if Florida State starts turning on, they catch a 3 to 4 game win streak. No, you can't lose this one. This Florida State team is bad, and I mean really bad. As long as he beats Florida State, I'm telling you, he's going to retain his job. But going back to his next 4 games, let's just talk about Georgia and Texas real quick. I was talking to a Florida fan today, and we were saying the same thing. Just keep it competitive. Keep it within 17 points. Anything above 17 is normally not competitive, but 17 and under, yeah, it is competitive. Nobody expects Billy Napier to win that game. Just, like I say, keep it close. Texas, same thing. Keep it under 17 or 20. Those games aren't too winnable. Florida's just, they're not ready to beat Texas and Georgia. But LSU and Ole Miss, I believe they can win those games. And by the way, both of those games, not just one, but both of them, LSU and Ole Miss, are home games. Can Billy Napier and this Florida team sneak out a win? I have no idea. I hope so. I'm rooting for him. I think he's a good dude, and those Florida players, despite what some of the fans think, they like Billy Napier. As of where it stands right now, I'd say Billy Napier on a scale of 1 to 10, he's at about a 6.5. These next 2 we're about to talk about are 2 I didn't even really consider or think about heading into the season, and we'll start out with this one first. Mark Stoops at Kentucky. Kentucky started out the year pretty good. Lost to Georgia by 1, played them close, and then they upset Ole Miss. Next thing you know, you look up, they're an abysmal 1-4 in SEC play and 3-4 overall. They just don't look good. And unlike Auburn and Brian Harsin, these games they're losing aren't even close. Got boat raced by Florida. That one wasn't even close, not even to the slightest. And then South Kakalaki beat them 31-6, but that game was a little bit closer than what the score indicates. But still, you lost by 25. You lose to Vandy. Yeah, Vandy's a little bit better than what we thought. They also beat Alabama. Come on, man. Kentucky should beat Vanderbilt. And I already know what some people are going to say, well, Matt, Kentucky's a basketball school. They don't care about football. Dude, that couldn't be any farther from the truth. They love football in Kentucky. The reason people don't think Kentucky fans care about the football program as much as the basketball program is because the football program hasn't been that good, so there's not really to celebrate. There's nothing to show up to. I'm telling you right now, those Kentucky fans love the football team just as much as basketball. And they are not going to put up what a coach doing what Mark Stoops has done this year. It just hasn't been good. I'm going to remind some of y'all, this Kentucky team wasn't supposed to be that bad. They had Georgia's backup quarterback, Brock Vandagriff, coming in, and he's been a nightmare. And it always feels like Mark Stoops is floating around the hot seat, but this year, I feel like he's actually on it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say he's at about a 5. Moving along here, and I know it seems like we're talking about a bunch of SEC schools, Brent Venables in Oklahoma. I think this one goes without being said. Oklahoma, they look awful. They are fortunate. They're 4-3. They should be 3-4. Shout out to Peyton Thorne. That's the only reason they beat Auburn. BV's already fired the offensive coordinator, and it's not good when you're already firing coordinators halfway through the season. Not even similar, but worse than Kentucky, Oklahoma's not even competing in SEC play. Yeah, you beat Auburn. You got lucky in that one. Shout out to Peyton Thorne yet again. Tennessee game wasn't close. They blew you out in the first half. The Texas game, blowout. And same thing for South Carolina. The South Carolina one, that was a nail in the coffin for me. I was like, man, what are we doing? You can't even compete with South Carolina. I mean, that game was over in the first 3 to 4 minutes. Venables is doing an awful job coaching this team, and I already know what people are going to say. Well, Matt, we're missing our 4 best wide receivers. I don't care. I'm sick and tired of that. Y'all been bringing that up since day one. Okay, I get it, and I know it. I understand it. I just don't care anymore. I did not expect Oklahoma to make the playoff this year, but I did expect them to compete in the SEC, and they haven't. I mean this in the most respectful way possible because I like what Shane Beamer's doing at South Carolina, but South Carolina is mid, and you got blown out. I mean blown out by South Kakalaki. Come on, man. I had Billy Napier at, what, a 6.5, but that's because he's got this Florida team looking good, especially the last 3 or 4 weeks. Oklahoma, no, they were like a train wreck. Believe it or not, I got Venables higher than Napier. I got him at a 7 out of 10. His seat is flaming hot, and it's not even like, oh, he's got to win out. Just start competing. Let's talk about this one a little bit because I've seen some people talking about it. Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. If I can keep things short and simple, that's what I like to do. For all those bozos out there, listen up, buddy. Kalen DeBoer isn't even close to the hot seat. That's it. That's all I'm going to say, period, the end. This is an interesting one. I believe he should be on the hot seat, but due to some circumstances, he is not on the hot seat, but I think it's kind of worthy of talking about. Mike Norvell and the cinnamon rolls. I stated in videos, you can go look them up if you want. They're documented on the channel. That's the beauty of YouTube. It's as close to a time machine as we're going to get. But like I was saying, I stated 2 years ago Norvell should have been fired. But here we are, fast forward in time. He has one decent season. And by the way, the ACC sucks, so it's not too impressive to go undefeated. But I digress. They go undefeated. And Florida State's like, oh my goodness, we got the next Nick Saban. We got to give him $100 million. And that's pretty much what they did. And they just ruined their own life pretty much. In this analogy, it's not their life, but they ruined their own program. That's the reason he is technically not on the hot seat, because guys, they can't fire him. There's just no way around it. When you give a man $70 million, you can't fire him the year after you do it. I know my cinnamon roll fan bases don't want to hear that. Maybe they do. I have no idea. I haven't even seen the Florida State fan base this year. Do they like Norvell? Do they hate him? No idea. But if we have any watching this video, let me know down below. Norvell, to me, on the hot seat is a 10 out of 10. But like I said, they're not going to fire him, so there's not too much of a need to even talk about it. Maybe next year, if they suck again, they'll consider paying his large buyout, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Last but not least, I do believe this is the last one I want to talk about. Lincoln Riley and USC, and I can't even believe this one, because at USC, guys, all you got to do is win 8 games a year, and they're going to be content. USC is not a very strong college football or just college program in general. Why is that? Because California is more so about, you know, the professional teams. Whereas in the Southeast, there's not as many professional teams, so people in the Southeast, they bleed whatever their college football team is. Great example, Alabama, they have 0 professional teams, so that's why a lot of people are diehard college football fans. Out in California, people just don't care about college football as much, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just is what it is. I'm giving you some context and perspective. I say that to say this. There's 0 pressure at USC to win football games. There's 0 pressure at USC to even win a national championship. Just don't make a fool out of yourself and don't make them look abysmal, and you're going to be okay. But Lincoln Riley has done just that. He's made a fool out of himself in that program, and they've looked abysmal. And it's hard to believe this is the same USC team that beat LSU. I mean, there's just so much parity in college football this year. It's insane. Even with that win against the mighty LSU Tigers, go Tigers, shout out to Ed Ogeron, USC is 3-4. They have now lost 4 out of their last 5, losing to Michigan, and as we all see, Michigan's not a very good team this year. Minnesota, they suck. Lost to Penn State, should have won that one, they blew it, and lost to Maryland by 1. This is now what, Riley's 3rd year, I believe? It's either his 3rd or 4th year, and he can't turn it around. It actually feels like USC is getting worse and worse and worse every single year and every single game. I'd say just due to the fact there's not a lot of pressure there like we talked about. Lincoln Riley, if he was in the SEC, he'd be on like a 8 out of 10, but for USC, I'd say he's at about a 5 out of 10. If he don't make a bowl game this year, which might not happen, there's a legit possibility he gets fired. I mean, think about it. Why would USC continue to put up with this mediocrity when you can go get Curt Cinetti from Indiana? There's a lot of great head coaches out there that are just way better than Lincoln Riley. And this should have told you everything you need to know about Lincoln Riley. He had Caleb Williams. We're talking about a generational quarterback, and what did he lose last year? Wasn't it 5 games? How in the world do you manage to lose 5 games with Caleb freaking Williams? I think I touched on the coaches I want to talk about. There may be a few I missed. I'm curious. Let me know your thoughts down below. But Roman